We did it.
Hello, everyone. It's Mxiety, your mental health talk show host and best friend, obviously. And I'm here with Grizzly, another best friend of yours. And we're here to answer questions and stuff. So hi, Grizzly.
Hello. Thanks for having me on again.
Thank you so much for being on for a very special rainbow-filled Q&A. Wait. Hold on. Let me see that Apple Watch band one more time.
Oh yeah, you got the Pride band. It's not the newest one, but I love it.
There's a newer. Wait, how?
Yeah, they release one every year.
How different? Oh, they did update the rainbow with the. Is that what it is?
I think it's just different materials. They find new ways to
sure.
spend some money.
Yeah, give them your money. Give them your money.
Right.
But welcome back. So Grizzly has been on before, but some peeps don't know you. So
yeah.
Give us an introduction. Let's start there.
Absolutely. Well, hello everyone. Happy Pride. I'm Grizzly, obviously. I'm a queer variety streamer here on Twitch. I'm a Twitch partner and a licensed psychologist. Just a bit of a professional background on me. So my doctor is in counseling psychology. My kind of specialty area is in LGBTQ mental health, obviously. I've worked in a variety of settings: inpatient, addiction, geriatrics, college counseling centers, and currently I work with military veterans. So on my stream, I play a variety of games. Obviously, I also have a little bit of a mental health segment that I typically do. I've had a bit of a hiatus from that for about a month now, but
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing this. Oh no, did you just get overloaded or?
Yeah, it's not to go into too much detail, but when the military veteran work I do, I work with veterans around chronic pain, sexual trauma, combat, war zone related trauma, and seeing that every single day starts to it sort of takes something from you.
Yeah, of course.
So I had to just kind of set some boundaries around what I was doing mental health wise outside of that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why I took just a little bit of a step back of just trying to guard my own, mental health and well-being.
No, that's
that sort
amazing. That's
Absolutely.
really good. Good for you. Practice what you preach and
that's
whatnot.
Right.
That's awesome. Okay, sorry, but you were saying so LGBTQ and veterans. So go ahead. Tell the rest.
No, absolutely. No, I think I was wrapping up, but yeah, I'm very happy that you're totally fine. So although I don't work in an LGBTQ predominated space, presently, I definitely have been a part of those spaces for most of my career. Most of my research in graduate school was on LGBTQ mental health. And so definitely still, and of course my own lived experience as a gay man, I think all plays into that. So I'm very excited to be here with all of you.
Yay! Okay, so we have updates. Thanks to our wonderful moderator, Tainted. You are able to now ask 3 questions at a time. So don't do them 1, 2, 3, but you can ask 3 questions. So if you're in the queue, you can ask another question if you have. So please, you have to type !join and then your question, and then that will enter the question into the queue, and that helps us funnel them all out. So while those collect, I guess I want to talk to you about a recent incident that we had here in chat. If somebody came, it was totally a troll, right? Starting
Naturally.
with that. Naturally, it wasn't anybody well-meaning. And they came in and they're like, what does LGBTQ have to do with mental health? So that's my best impression. That's what I think they sound like. I think I did a really good job. Yeah, honestly.
You nailed that.
Yeah, thanks. So can you tell us what the heck is the connection between LGBTQ and mental health?
Sure. I honestly think there's no way even I alone could cover that connection.
Yeah, that's literally
it's so broad and so strong. But I think in terms of just on a basic form of identity, obviously the identity is the way we see ourselves and all the intersectional identities that we all have, especially for those of us in the queer community. I do apologize. I use the word queer, and so I know that people have different reactions to that word. I kind of use it in a reclamation sort of way. So I just want to put that
community with it.
Say that at the beginning.
Used it before. Yeah.
And so as queer people, we are, amongst that's at least one, if not more, marginalized identities that we have. And naturally, what comes with marginalized identity is minority stress, from the kind of patriarchal, heteronormative, whitewash society that we live in. Those of us with these identities, of course, we suffer those burdens on our mental health, our physical health. And so, of course, there's a humongous connection there. And of course, even just in our own identity development, Coming out is certainly not like a one-time, experience or one-time
No.
action, and so it's prolonged, and people have various reactions to that. We have various reactions to our own identity development and discoveries about our identity. So I mean, there's like more ways to explain that connection than I think we could even possibly cover.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the bizarre thing. It's everything connects to mental health because your mental health is just like your brain health, and you use
Right.
your brain, hopefully, to
Hmm.
process like the whole world. So anything in the world that you process,
Hmm.
especially things that pertain directly to you and your
Hmm.
identity, are going to affect your mental health. And then how you interact with other people and how they react to your identity is going to affect your mental
Absolutely.
health.
Yeah, it's absolutely down to how we see the world and how we feel the world sees us. And I think when it comes to our mental health, sometimes that lens that we see the world can change, or it can look different, or it can have kind of dark spots on it, or all these different types of things. I think you're like absolutely right in that.
All right. Yeah, there you go. Okay, can we also exclamation list, please, so I can see the list once it starts coming in? Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Okay, so our identity is affected by mental health, and how do we? Okay, the other thing I wanted to talk about that is
Mhm.
current events related, and so
Sure.
how do we react? Like, what the heck do we do when we see things like what's happening in Hungary? Obviously, Russia, Hungary is just following in Russia's steps of like
Hmm.
LGBTQ conversations are propaganda and must not be
Yeah.
had until you're over 18, which
Hmm.
I guess is when you become sexy.
I have no idea who knows the justification for that.
Right. Right. So I don't know. How do you feel about that? How, in general, how did that affect you? And what do you think when you see stuff like? Because I immediately think about like these poor kids who,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I think, especially those of us like invested in mental health and otherwise, like we're very, I think by nature, very empathetic, in that we try to sort of place ourselves in other people's shoes to maybe try to understand to some degree, like what that lived experience must be like. And truly, when I think about that, there's no way I can really understand fully what that ever would be like. Um, and yeah, it's so painful to see. And it's like, you just want to, you wish you could just do something, or like make some action that would just change everything. And it's truly, I almost don't have words to even like explain like what that feels like to see. Feels like our people, people we're connected to, at least in terms of like identity in some ways, to be persecuted in a very literal sense, so directly. Where we live, in our own kind of westernized society, and even you could broaden this out to even about mental health looks so different, like
of
in these different
course.
countries, and
Yeah, yeah.
openness to that and what that really means. Um, and so yeah, it's honestly just heartbreaking.
It is. I think about the fact that like I will never be able to talk to my relatives in Russia and be able to accept. So I come from Russia.
Mhm.
I don't know if you do that.
Okay, no, I didn't know that.
I came from Russia when I was 14 years old.
Oh wow.
And so it's a very like, and I just came out last year, and I feel
Hmm.
like that explains a lot, right?
Hmm.
There is I think about it a lot about the fact that like one, I would have never been able to explore my identity if I was still in
Hmm.
Russia. I would have just repressed the hell out of it to keep myself,
Hmm.
kosher
Sure.
for the rest of everybody. But like I can't come out to my mom who's
Right.
still in Russia. I can't come out to my family. Like I can't, because if I do, they will look at me completely differently and they'll disown me, and that is
Hmm.
not that that is like completely wild to comprehend, but
Hmm.
I don't know. It's such a human rights issue. Like, how the
Yeah.
hell? Why do we see so differently about this? I don't understand. I don't
Yeah.
understand how countries could be making laws, like enacting laws against people's identities. And then, in the other hand, in this country, we're still
Hmm.
fighting, but
Right.
like, we have pride parades.
Hmm.
That alone would scare the shit out of people
Oh yeah.
in like Russia and Hungary.
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
truly just highlights just how brave those activists are in those countries that still
Oh my
do what they
God.
can. I mean, it's truly heroic, like in the most literal sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's mind blowing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So we have our first question, and it's not
Okay.
LGBTQ related. So
That's okay.
here's what you are allowed to. So let me clarify. You are allowed to ask literally like anything as long as it's kind of on topic. Like, don't ask me if all whales are blue or something like that. I don't think either of
What
us
are
will know
they?
the
No.
answer.
Yeah,
I
no.
don't know that we know the answer to that. I don't. Are
Mm-mm.
whales blue at all? I think they're gray, right?
I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, so so regardless of whale color,
Hmm.
you know, ask questions that are on ask anything about like figuring yourself out, figuring other people out, supporting other people, whatever it is that's on your brain when it comes to LGBTQ stuff.
Hmm.
You know, Grizzly will try to answer to the best of his
Yeah.
ability. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Boo 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 boo.
And
Okay.
that's a good point. Just to briefly touch on that, because I
Yeah.
think we talked about this last time a little bit. That I say this a lot on my own stream. I'm talking about mental health. That by no means, even though my like expertise or a lot of my research, whatever, is all pretty much comprised in LGBT stuff, that by no means makes me the eternal like arbiter of like LGBTQ issues, or that I speak on behalf of like all the LGBTQ community. I, as like a cis gay man, a white cis gay man, see things through that lens, and I'm pretty good about acknowledging that, but I don't always acknowledge it, fully. And so I just like to point that out right at the beginning, that your lived experience may be very different from something that I say, and that is perfectly valid. And encourage you to share that.
Ooh, let's add on that you are not anybody's therapist, so you cannot.
Yep.
Okay,
Perfect.
that whole thing.
Yep.
You can't give people direct advice.
Right. I
Yeah.
can't diagnose you with anything or anything
Right.
like that.
Yeah. Most whales are gray. Yeah. I feel like we're making a blanket statement here, and there's some whales that are different colors that are going to be rather offended by that. I don't know.
Hopefully they're not watching.
Hopefully they're. If you're watching, Mr. Mrs. They whale.
That's right.
Please, I
forgive us.
apologize. Please forgive us. Should I speak whale? Hold on. I didn't explain that in proper whale dialect. Okay, I'm done. Pizza Taco asks, I have high functioning autism, ADHD, and OCD. How can I tell streamers that I have high functioning autism, ADHD, and OCD? I feel like people don't understand me, and I'm just trying to make friends with other viewers, but people think I'm a troll, and I'm definitely not a troll.
That's a really good question. And, I think it really depends on your own comfort level with being transparent about those things. And I think that you can do that with the streamer. I have some mixed feelings about doing that like in chat, because some streamers may see that as something that's like off topic, or if like we're having a discussion about and then you sort of come out with this blanket kind of thing about your own experiences. Some streamers may react negatively to that. Something that may be helpful is like DM, like figuring out who the mods of the stream are, and maybe like messaging them on the side, so maybe that they're somewhat aware. But we have to remember, like, we're in Twitch, like between Twitch chat and a streamer, it's a parasocial relationship, and things are obviously communicated communicated very differently, because as a streamer you get to see like the inflection in our voice and our body language and gestures like I'm doing here. And so you can very easily, hopefully, tell if we're being like sarcastic about something, or something like that. But when we're reading just text, it's void of all of that information. And so as a streamer, sometimes it's really hard to get a read on, like, is that a joke, or is that sarcasm, or are you trolling, etc. And mods are typically the ones that are going to be making some of those snap decisions about, like, okay, this person needs to be like removed. And so in my mind, maybe messaging those mods ahead of time, or in the chat, or not in the chat, but like sort of DMing them on the side might be a good way to get your foot in the door, so to speak, when it comes to gaining some understanding in that respect.
Yeah, and you know what? What I want to add to that is I feel like it'll also be a great window for you, because Pizza Taco, I understand that you're trying to get people to accept you for who you are, but you should be just as discerning about who you're talking to, right? So if you message a mod, and let's say their response is negative, like they say something like, "Oh, that's your problem," or whatever, what an excuse, or something like that. That's a good sign for you to hop out of that community and be like, all right, this is not going to be good. This is not going to be healthy for me. Because not everything is your fault automatically because you're not neurotypical. That's not how it works. So I really, really like that advice, because I think it works two ways. Like, you also get an insight into what kind of community this is going to be. without having to spend a ton of time in the community. You know, I like that.
Super good point.
I
Yeah.
like that. I like that a lot. I'm gonna tell people now, but I'm gonna tell them you told me, obviously.
Right. Yeah. Point them to
Obviously.
me. That's right.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Wait. It says my queue is empty. It's not empty. That's lies. Okay. Q. Okay. Next question. Taito asks, what resources would you recommend to a person who's trying to answer questions about their own identity, specifically their gender identity? Maybe books or series or streams, whatever. My thirst is infinite. Go bonkers.
Well, okay, I'm trying to organize thoughts in my head real quick. So Trans Lifeline comes up, first in my brain. Obviously, they're mostly like a support network, that's created by and staffed by trans folks. And they also have a variety of resources on their website with respect to gender identity, gender expression. Same thing goes for like the Trevor Project. Obviously Twitch has now added all of these tags for various identities when it comes to sexual, affectional orientation, gender presentation, and identity. And so certainly I think I'm trying to remember the name of the website that they recently created. Mxiety, you may have heard of it, where you can sort of self-identify various identities that you express.
Is that part of Trans Lifeline? Oh, it's the
it is. They created it.
Yeah. Peer-to-peer.
Peer-to-peer, yes.
Okay.
Is it peer-to-peer.live is the name of it.
That's right.
It's the number 2.
That's right.
Peer-to-peer.live is a great place to find streamers of various identities. I mean, they have so many different tags that I think they really included everybody. And so I think that's an excellent place to go. When it comes to I'd be a little wary about some, self-help books around this area, like on Amazon and things. I would just investigate who the author is, of these various things. But there are some good resources out there as well. But yeah, I would definitely point you first to Trans Lifeline, PFLAG, Trevor Project, the kind of sort of standard LGBTQ mental health sort of organizations, because I think they likely have the best when it comes to, they probably have sifted through a lot of those resources to make sure they're giving you the best.
You know what I would add here, and I love this because you say amazing, incredible things, and then I get to be like, also,
I love it.
So I would check out. I would not be surprised if the Trevor Project didn't have a page on Amazon with resources. Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes like if you land on the Mxiety page, you get access to my book. But I think if you type in Trevor Project, you might get a landing page of stuff. It might be merch, but it might also be books and stuff that they recommend.
Yeah, if you go to Trevor Project, thetrevorproject.org, and click resources, I'm looking right now and I can see a ton of articles about gender identity, expression, development, all these different things, and they seem to be written by people that are experts in those various areas.
Yeah. Grizzly is the tank for the social conversation and the support. Absolutely. That's just how I roll anyway. So this is perfect. This is perfect indicator of how I work in gaming as well. This is great.
That.
Great. Love that. But yeah, so that's start with reliable resources and continue with reliable resources.
Absolutely.
I like that. Yeah. But also Google Scholar is a great place to, not everything on Google Scholar is going to be amazing, but it's if you're going to just Google, I would rather you do Google Scholar and go from there too. Yeah. Okay, next question. Cartha Bruges asks, do you see people struggling when their fandoms are tainted because creators or key figures come out as anti-LGBTQ? For example, J.K. Rowling going completely TERF.
Can you read the first part of that? I caught the second part, but I think I blanked on the first part. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's fine. Do you see people struggling when their fandoms are tainted because creators or key figures come out as anti-LGBTQ?
Absolutely. I mean, I on just a personal anecdotal note, I was pretty into Harry Potter. I really enjoyed the universe. That was kind of part of my childhood. And when J.K. Rowling came out as a TERF, basically,
came out as a TERF.
Personally, yeah, I probably shouldn't use the phrase "come out," but
I don't know how else
to be a TERF.
Okay.
I pretty much had to swear all of it off. I know people have different opinions and approaches to that, but I think it has been a struggle. And I think, I honestly think with that particular situation, I have a lot of trans folks as friends and colleagues on Twitch and other things that were also really into the Harry Potter universe and saw a lot of themselves, I think, in that universe, and really identified a lot with it. And for when that happened, I think it causes a big shift, because I think that's, the queer community by and large has used video games, movies, media, and other things as storytelling devices,
Yeah.
of our history, of our identities, of just of what we enjoy. And sometimes those are created by other creators, and we immerse ourselves in those worlds. And when those things become tainted so significantly in that way, I mean, it's hard. I mean, I think it's kind of a part of us, our childhood or our identity. Maybe that was a part of our identity development, was a specific piece
Right.
of media that we felt like, hey, that really helped me grow, like in a
Right.
way, or in some other way like that. And so yeah, I definitely think a lot of people really struggle with that.
It's sucky because especially but literally like one of the points of Harry Potter is like acceptance of who you are and that you can make a difference no matter, how plain or simple or whatever you
Hmm.
think you are, right? How normal. And
Hmm.
with that, and because there were, especially when we were growing up, there were not a lot of books being like, hey, accept yourself as gay, that's
Right.
totally normal and that's okay to be queer and all of that. You
Hmm.
had to take the heteronormative literature and kind of make meaning for it for
Hmm.
yourself that helped you come to terms. Like, so many people have talked about the fact that Harry Potter helped them come to terms with who they
Yeah.
are. So to find
Hmm.
out that the person leading behind it is like, oh, you can be whoever you want to be as long as you're not trans.
Right.
That's whew,
Yeah.
that's so it's broken me. There's so much merch that has come out that I've
Hmm.
had to like not cry but not buy very like cute shit. Like she did a
It's
whole
hard.
whole line with Vera Bradley and I was like, this is it's a really cute soft blanket and I want it, but I don't want her to have a cent of my money. It's
I know. Yeah.
the monetary aspect of it, the right, take the merchandising part out of it. Just I have the books on my shelf. I have stuff that I had like bought forever ago. It's here and I look at it and I feel guilty even though I
Mhm.
know that I bought it when I was like 14 because it changed how I saw the world at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's like a new Harry Potter video game, I think, that they
Is it
announced or
out?
is
Yeah,
coming out. I don't.
yeah, something like
I
that.
felt like that was a while ago. Maybe it's still in production. I don't know. But I know that that was like obviously a very contentious kind of subject, for a lot of people, because of J.K. Rowling's issues. And like, to me, like personally, like my own take on it is just that, like, for me as a cis man, and I think even just more broadly than that, allyship is not only allyship when it's convenient for us, or
Mm,
when it is like easy for us. And so that may mean giving up things that we perhaps enjoyed at one
mm-hmm.
point in the name of that allyship. And I think this is like a perfect example.
Yeah.
Granted, giving up Harry Potter is not like in and of itself make you an ally, obviously.
Right.
Ally is a verb, like it requires action, beyond that.
Yep.
But at least that it's very on a very base level. I think it's something that's very easy to do.
Yeah. It's still in production. The creative director's an apparent part-time YouTuber, does lots of right-wing and transphobic stuff. Oh,
Oh, wow.
neat!
That is interesting. I did not know that.
That's great. I think they did
Hmm.
denounce it. They said that she's not going to have anything to do with the creation of the game, but it's her license. That's it. She
Yeah.
owns the license. She's making money
Hmm.
off of it, no matter what you do.
Hmm.
Oh, I think Madame Turf is her new incarnation. She used
Madame
to be,
Turf.
yeah. Now she's someone.
I
Now
love
you're
that.
just somebody that I used to know.
That's right.
Yeah. Get
Chick-fil-A is another good example. That's a perfect
Chick-fil-A.
example.
So
Perfect
many. I
example.
know gay people who eat at Chick-fil-A and are
Yep.
begrudgingly.
Yep.
But the more I learn about them, the more I'm like, I've never eaten Chick-fil-A, and the more I learn about them, the more I'm like, I can't. They
Hmm.
opened one recently next to me, and I can't.
They're everywhere.
You like, I don't know how I would feel so much guilt. It wouldn't even taste good because it comes with a side of guilt.
It's not even worth it. It's not
Right.
even worth the guilt. Not that anything would be, but like it's definitely not.
Good to know. Okay, Liquid asks, quick question. Is fear of abandonment treatable?
Yeah, I mean, I think like broadly speaking, obviously, fear of abandonment is sort of broad, right? It could be abandoned. That could be things related to childhood or not childhood. It could be more like adult, platonic, romantic relationships, all these different things. But yes, absolutely. Because I think at the core of a fear of abandonment is difficulties revolving around trust. And the tough thing about trust is that once it is like injured or harmed, it's difficult to rebuild that. But I said difficult and not impossible. It just takes a lot of time. And, psychotherapy is obviously like trust, I think, is like probably one of the topics I've talked about the most with clients, because I think we all experience various levels of trust. We all have different ways that people build trust with us, how we, perceive what our trust looks like, early on experiences we've had that may have affected how much trust we have, or, what that looks like. But I would say by and large, absolutely. I think that is something that is definitely treatable, so to speak.
I want to add a little thing here as somebody who had a lot of abandonment issues growing up, because my mom kidnapped me, and then my dad left, and then it was a whole so everybody in my family at one point like disappeared completely out of my life.
Oh, wow.
And so so it's like equals abandonment issues. I was a walking abandonment issue, and I can say that like I still have problems. Like if I brought my partner up here, he'd be like, "Oh yeah, she's got issues," but lovingly. But I definitely have gotten, like, I used to not be able to spend time by myself if it was at night. And like that's not the case anymore. So like everybody's different, and what recovery looks like looks for you is going to be different than me and everything. And I'm not pretending that like I know your situation, but I got better. Maybe there's hope.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. Oh my God, we're like running through time and questions. This is amazing. Okay. Martizzle, my workplace houses a Chick-fil-A, and I'm in the process of writing a letter to suggest its removal. I'm not holding my breath on it. Any suggestions or words of advice?
Well, I definitely applaud you, in taking that action. I think that's amazing. I guess I'm having some thought as someone that grew up in the South. I'm always of this mindset of this kind of like protective kind of, perspective, I suppose. And so I don't know if like you're out at your workplace, and all this. I guess my only thing would be, really give some thought to like your own sort of like safety, your own protection when it comes. I don't know if in the state you live, if LGBT people have legal protections, related to their identity. So I would just think about those things. But I think at the core of it, I mean, I think including in that letter, kind of what we all, I think, sort of know about like what Chick-fil-A does when it comes to their philanthropic work with certain organizations that are obviously very anti-LGBT, how that makes you, again, if you feel comfortable being out at work, about maybe how that affects you personally, like in the workplace as someone, if you do identify as LGBT. So I think including that personal experience is definitely helpful, as well as kind of highlighting like, you're on a corporate level, on a global level, this is what this group kind of stands for. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I have a question, and I'm gonna insert it. So what if, and this has come up quite a few times, like if somebody has an issue, so because you mentioned maybe go and find a psychotherapist, right? And I think we also talked about this last time, so I'm sorry for repeating.
You're
but
fine.
I feel like it's important.
Absolutely.
So you say go find a psychotherapist, but how many psychotherapists out there have that experience with, have that research that you did, have that background of understanding? Like how do I find somebody who speaks my language, and when I can't, what the heck do I do? Like that, because that's gotta be, I don't know the percentage off the top of my head, but the percentage of LGBTQ practitioners has to be like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And and I think that number is growing when it comes to like queer folks that are going into mental health, or even just providers that are getting the necessary sort of training and expertise. I think, I've been doing I have these continuing education credits I have to do to relicense as a psychologist, which is the end of this month. Oh, do you really?
That's my job, is to produce those.
Okay, well, we need to get together after this so we can.
Okay, so you can
more. I need to do. Anyway, and so I was listening to one very recent about this kind of issue actually, and it was talking about how more and more providers are moving. We've kind of moved as a large mental health sphere to this place of LGBT acceptance, which is a good thing in that providers are not openly like biased or discriminatory. but still we're not really all the way there yet. We're really looking for is like an LGBT affirming space. And so that word affirming is really important because an acceptance kind of perspective sort of says like, you can be here even though you're LGBT.
Even
Whereas an
though.
affirming, right,
Right.
which is like an affirming space is you can be here because you are LGBT. And that's a pretty huge difference. And so that's a word that I look for when because I have my own psychologist, you know, and I've looked through different therapists and things. That word affirming is a word that I really like to look for because that distinction is often like what I just kind of described. That's a big piece of training that a lot of mental health providers get in LGBT issues. So I like to look for that word in particular. You know, psychology today also has, you know, a million checkboxes when it comes to providers' expertise as well as like providers' own identity. So that's a good place to look. You're using those different checkboxes and things. Hopefully, you know, if you live in an area, I hope that you live in an area that has some kind of community center for LGBT people specifically. Typically, those centers do have like mental health provider lists that they have partnered with, that they trust and have worked with, you know, regularly. And typically, those also include like sliding scale sort of fee providers who can cater a little bit more or be a little bit more financially flexible when it comes to their fees. And so those are the two big resources that I like to give out. But there's also a growing amount of like LGBT specific online telehealth providers as well.
That's awesome. I highly recommend checking out. So BetterHelp does have like a specific section that you can ask if your provider is going to be LGBTQ friendly. But there's also the Psychology Collective. I want to say it's called. It's something collective. I have it on my website. And they basically, you pay like a lower fee and then you can get in with them. And then all the therapists are in their network are like asked for like only like $30 payments or something, like very, very low on the lower end. So I know that's kind of crappy because I'm like, here's a resource that I don't remember, but go look it up.
Yeah.
something Path Collective. Holy moly, it's on my site. It's on my website. But thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the response. Gives me some things to think over, says Martizzle. That was for the last question.
Martizzle. Absolutely.
Aww. Okay. Next in the queue, thoughts on the Who? Why are we asking this? What the hell?
I just want to make sure I understand this situation fully because I think I caught just like a part of it. It was basically like, I think I remember it being something about like it had a scene where Batman like performs oral sex on his partner, but they removed on Catwoman and they removed it because they said heroes don't do that or something.
It was in the script and that was what was supposed to happen. And then the notes were from, I don't remember from who, with either the comic book or the studio that's making a movie. I don't remember, but the notes were heroes don't do that.
Truly bizarre and probably just additional evidence of like the patriarchal like society we live in and all these other things. It's I mean it is hilarious obviously, but it's also like kind of sad like it is really on some level like
that. Somebody
like it's really sad. Like,
somebody wrote that. It is hilarious. Sorry, not sorry, but somebody wrote that. Somebody had the gall to be like, you know what? No oral sex. No, none for you. Like, why? What made you so angry? Why are you so sad? Like, what happened? What happened that you are so against this beautiful thing? I don't like. It's a thing. It's a thing people do. Why you got to be mad about it?
It's so bizarre.
I mean, they could have literally said like, you know, heroes don't hold hands. Like it could have been literally anything, and it would have been just as dumb.
But that's the line they drew. That was the hill they wanted to die on. Yeah.
That was it.
So bizarre.
It is. It's so weird. But it is. There is the memes that have come out of it have been pretty freaking fantastic.
Yeah, there have been some good ones.
Yeah. So at least we have that. Like, be grateful for the memes. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Husky Bear asks, what is the best way to approach and help friends, people who seem to use their mental health issues, problems as a crutch or an excuse for bad things going on in their lives? Ooh, we talk about that a lot here.
Well, feel free to chime in because I think this is a very like deep topic in a lot of ways. And also, hi, Brian. But you know, something I like to always point out to people is that you can certainly offer support, right? You can let people know that you are there for them. You know, you're there to help them find a provider. Maybe for some people, even like drive them, you know, to a provider or sit in the waiting room with them, that kind of thing. But I think you can have a boundary around that. Like you can have a boundary to where, like, if that support is becoming like detrimental to your own mental health, physical health, other things, like by no means are you like required to continue to support this person at your own damage. And I think it's okay to be direct with people about like, listen, I know that you've talked about experiencing XYZ mental health issue, and I see it impacts your life in this way. Um, but this is also how it impacts me as someone that cares about you, as someone that is, you know, a friend to you, or, you know, whatever relationship you have with them. And it hurts me to see you hurt in that way. And to not, you know, pursue something to help with that. Like, I think it's okay to use that kind of I language and speak about your own experience. Because that person may truly not even be aware of that. They may not, that may be a complete blind spot for them. And they may not necessarily react with, oh my gosh, thank you for sharing that with me. That may not be the response.
Sure.
But I do think I think it's okay and important to assert yourself, you know, where you see fit. And it's okay also, I think, to offer support, but making sure to maintain a healthy kind of relationship with that.
Yeah. So what I'll add here is, I guess it's always explanation versus excuse, right? Is it an explanation or is it an excuse? If it's an excuse, I think it's very fair to say to that friend, that person, that like, hey, that's really not cool, because it implies that people with this illness have kind of like no control over their lives. And so that is like, when I'm confronted with something like that, I get sassy potatoes about it. And I will say that. I will be like, hey, you're kind of implying that like, so people with ADHD like have zero control over their impulses. Like,
right.
It's harder to have control over my impulses, but I'm still a person and I'm still responsible for what happens when I'm impulsive. And so when people do like, it's my depression, it's my anxiety, it's my whatever, that is what I try to turn it back to them, like, hey, but that's the sassy potatoes answer. I don't know that that's the best answer. Probably I think
it's direct, you know. I think it's honest, you know. I think you're exactly right that just because we may, you know, experience various mental health concerns doesn't necessarily give us some kind of, you know, just like license to do whatever we want or to treat people however we want. And that's on some level we still have to take, you know, responsibility for the behaviors that we can control.
That's really the bottom line. Excuse versus explanation is, is it an excuse and you're basically being like, oh, my ADHD card, like, is that what you're doing? Or are you saying, are you ultimately taking responsibility for what you're doing? Because I also understand that doing something repeatedly that people hate doing, but you keep doing it because you can't help it. But you could still take responsibility for that. You could still say, this is my Achilles heel. I literally work on it every day and it sucks. And that usually makes people feel a ton better than if you're just like, nah, ADHD, I got a free, like, you don't get a freebie to be a crappy person no matter what is going on.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay. You can tell I'm very passionate about this. I got real worked up, real hot for a second.
Maybe it's a common interpersonal concern. I think most people are probably faced at least once, you know?
No, it is. And I think as like mental health becomes more of a conversation, and I feel like people come into their identities, and part of your identity is obviously the things you might be afflicted with when it comes to your mental health. And so I understand, as you're kind of going through that and figuring out your identity, people will, you know, for example, like where their ADHD is their identity or their depression. And they'll be like, I'm doing this because of this, and this is how it is, and I can't help it. And actually, maybe they are in a part of their journey where they genuinely can't help it because they don't have the tools to figure out how to cope or figure that thing out. That doesn't mean that gives them free reign to like hurt you. That's still not okay. But if you want to give them grace, it might help to understand, like, they might be coming from this angle of they don't even get it. And that's what you said. But yeah, I think as we talk about mental health more, we're going to hear that more and more. And I think it's our job to remind people that they're accountable for their actions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think, and I'm sorry, I'm belaboring this, but I
Totally
think,
fine.
I think it also goes back to like people who are like, oh, I didn't know I kissed her, I was drunk. Like,
Yeah,
you're still responsible for your actions. I'm sorry you were drunk. It sounds like you shouldn't drink because then you kiss people you're not supposed to kiss. So
sure.
yeah, okay. Now I think I'm done for now. uh, uh, I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, you're fine.
Rude. How rude. Okay, that was fantastic advice, says Husky Bear. Thank you so much. Yeah. Uh, okay, wait. Did we run out of questions? What
Dun,
happened?
dun.
Dun dun dun. Oh, that's fine. Oh, Pizza Taco has one more. As someone who has autism, I'm always Okay, this is a good one. As someone who has autism, I'm always straightforward, and I feel like I'm being affected by cancel culture, for example. As I've told some streamers, I might not agree with one thing about LGBTQ because of my religious beliefs. And I'm not going to force my religion on anyone. I don't know.
So
Okay,
in
there's a
the
lot to
same
unpack.
in the same way that you mentioned being straightforward, I will in turn be straightforward with you. In that, I think for many of us as LGBTQ people, some of it, I don't know if I want to say a lot of us or some of us, I don't know the actual stats or anything. A lot of us have a lot of trauma surrounding this kind of dialogue about, my religious beliefs prevent me from supporting you or something like that. I think the key there is when you mention that you may not agree with one thing, and really when it comes to identity, there really is no like agreement or disagreement. Um, and I think that's
Right.
kind of the pigeonholed point is when you mention that, like, well, maybe I don't agree with something. And really, as LGBT people, we're not really seeking agreement from you or disagreement from
Right.
you. And so I think even introducing that into a space is you're going to catch a lot of heat for that, honestly. Because my guess is people are probably not asking whether or not you necessarily agree with something about themselves or their identity. It's their Twitch stream. It's their space. It's not a democracy. They will curate that space how they want to. And for a lot of us LGBT streamers, we get a lot of trolls surrounding this kind of dialogue. And so we're very quickly here to kind of weed it out. And that's probably about as blunt as I can sort of put it, I guess.
That was really beautifully put. Holy moly. That was really, really eloquent. Thank you. And I know that required a lot of emotional labor, even though it seems like a simple question. But
Sure.
I love that. Yes, let's emphasize that over and over again. Like, I don't think your beliefs are in question here. Also, I would like to point out, as somebody who has followed a few religions in my life, that true religion preaches that you love everybody, no matter who they are. So if you are following a religion that is telling you people are bad because they XYZ, maybe it's time to sit down and read what the actual religion says instead of taking other people's word for it. Sitting down with the text and not somebody's interpretation, and interpreting it yourself and what it means to you. And once you internalize it yourself, you might see it a little differently than so-and-so took this passage out of context and now they say that this means this against this. So that's one thing. And I think another important thing is sometimes we just don't have to tell people at all, like you said, what we think about how they, especially when it comes to human rights and things people can't help at all.
Yeah.
You can help being religious. You can choose to not be religious. People, whatever is happening that is happening in the queer space, there's a 99.99999% chance they did not choose to do that. So I think that also needs to be taken in consideration.
Absolutely. I mean, I think in the same vein, it's like I don't necessarily go to like a religious person's stream and immediately say, well, here's X, Y, and Z reasons why I disagree with everything.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like I don't seek out that kind of discord, and like I'm sure there are things I would disagree with, but I don't enter their space and their community to do that. And of course, LGBT queer identity is very different in that it's a literal identity we're born with. Um, but I think that same notion holds true that it's never going to work out well for you going into a particular group's space with the sheer, I guess, goal or whatever to explain all the reasons why you disagree, quote unquote, with something that they believe in.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to read a few comments. As someone who holds queerness and religion as core identities, I think there's a time and space for those conversations, but sometimes it's not right to share those ideas in random places. I think this
Agreed.
goes back to your earlier comment about some, ultimately you have a parasocial relationship with your streamers. It feels like you know them, so you can tell them, well, I don't agree with this or I don't agree with that, but you don't, and you have like as was said, you really don't have any right to tell them what they should and shouldn't be doing in their space. Because those conversations are deep and touch hard identities, and not every stream is a good place for it. Yeah, that's a really good point. The thing is, Pizza Taco, that being queer is theoretical for you. It feels like people fighting for an idea that's more right, but it's not theoretical to people living it.
Ooh, well said.
So well. Oh, Blissful is
very
always
well
just
said.
like, oh,
Yeah,
just
very
so
well
on top
said.
of it. Amazing. I love you,
Super
Blissful.
well said.
Unless you're a moderator. Imagine how you'd be seen if you showed up in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome and scream at the Pope that Christianity is wrong. Right. Yeah. That's beautiful. I think that was so heckin' eloquently addressed that I just wanna leave it there.
Yeah, I think that really
simmer.
that put a great, that's a good note to sit with.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Can I ask if the community has more questions? Because I feel like if they don't, and then that's amazing. Is this the person we are posting our questions for? No, Phoenix, that was on Tuesday, but you can ask your questions today for this person. Yeah, absolutely. absolutely. What has been, I have to ask you, and maybe I'm taking your content from your stream, so I'm sorry in advance.
You're fine.
But what has been like on your mind? It doesn't have to be like, obviously you're more than your queer identity as well. So like, like what's been on your mind? What's been something that's been like, I've been thinking about this, and let me tell you, unless you're like nothing, I'm fucking tired.
I'm just blank.
I'm just tired.
Like I said, I've been going through all these CEUs, so it's just like I have all this like not theoretical, but like scientific information about LGBT people and mental health. Like I listened to one today all about like substance abuse and like interpersonal partner violence, which I know are not like sunshine and rainbow like topics, but I mean, there are like very real concerns and things that we as a queer community experience, and that we really have to help each other through, because it's becoming such an epidemic like in our community. And along with that, I guess I'm just going for like really like hard hitting topics right now.
That's not a problem. This is the place to do it. Go for it.
If those of you in chat, if you follow like a lot of streamers on Twitter, you probably see kind of what happens in the streamer Twitter space. And I'm not necessarily going into like the specific situation, but I think there's been a lot of really good conversations about whiteness in the space of queer identity, and how we really, especially as white queer people, how we really have to be much better about it and acknowledge and really work on understanding like intersectional identities when it comes to queerness, especially when it comes to race and ethnicity. And so that's something I've been thinking a lot about how, even if we think about a lot of media, television, movies, when we see queer people portrayed, they're often white, they're often men,
right?
They're often of a specific like body type. They always have like they sort of present them as a certain sort of class, like socioeconomic status. And how it's like, even though we're getting representation, we're still really not representing just how large of a diverse community we really are.
No, that is a really good conversation that's being had, and I'm happy it's being had because exactly what you're describing. We're overdue, and it's one of those things where, and I don't know if you experience this just like as a white person, but I get kind of hit in the head with it sometimes, where I think like I'm an accepting person, I'm a loving person, I generally do not discriminate against people, and I'd like to think that I'm all those positive things, but once in a while I'll read an opinion that's like, hey, marginalized folks are kept out of these communities, or hey, did you realize that like every depiction of a gay man is looks like this and talks like this and has this much
Yeah.
money, like you just said. And those things hit me upside the head where I'm like, because it's so foreign to me, because it doesn't affect me immediately, I haven't thought about it. And that is why I'm grateful that this discourse is happening.
Absolutely. And I think it just really speaks to how much we really need to continue to elevate BIPOC creators and their voices. And because we as like white queer folks, we see things through that lens, and whiteness is certainly a part of that lens. And I think it can make us very blind to, kind of like what you were describing, like it can make us very blind to ways in which that we don't notice how we are so commonly represented in that way.
Yeah. Because you don't think about it. You just
again, it speaks to how much more listening we as white queer people need to be doing of BIPOC queer creators.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was thinking, somebody the other day asked me, they're like, tell me mental health creators in the space. And I started listing off people, and I was like, oh no, that person's white, and that person's white, and that person. And I like, my head started going off. I'm grateful that I have enough awareness now because of being in the space and trying to listen to other people and everything, that I was like, oh, I gotta expand my circles. But it's because I know mental health creators who are non-white exist. I know they're there, and I know some of them, but I need to it is my job, not anybody else's responsibility, to find a way to find more and to welcome more. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ooh, Ellen, I don't, do you have the spoons
a little bit of a loaded
answer?
question.
Do you have the spoons to answer this, or we can skip it?
I like what Bliffle mentioned, that like those surgeries do not happen on children.
Yeah.
That is purely propaganda that people put that out there. And also, like, I guess I want to set a boundary around, like, I don't know if I necessarily want to jump too deeply into that. Like I said, I'm a psychologist. When we're talking about hormone therapies and other things that really trends more into like the medical realm, of which I am not at all an expert in. But I will say that we know that children at a very early age do have an idea of their gender identity and the ways they want to like express themselves. I think that's a larger conversation around children making medical decisions for themselves. And that discourse could be like its own like 10-hour long, like,
that's
debate.
not an LGBTQ conversation. That's just a human rights conversation, period. Yeah. It's a oh my God. Oh no. Wait, we have to, let me show you. Okay, I feel like we have to leave on a more positive note. So how do we make this more positive? No, how do we make this more, not that everything has to be positive.
Sure.
Hold on, let me back that up too. Like, not everything has to be great, and some things are not like sunshine and daisies, and that is fine. And I think it's interesting that it tells you a lot about my trauma, I think, and just about like the personality that's ingrained in me of like, oh, I got uncomfortable, I got to make it comfortable again. We don't have to make it comfortable again.
I mean, I think I think good note is just the fact that like because we were talking about, like other cultures and things like that, and what LGBT discourse can look like in that way. Just the fact that we are able to like even have this conversation so openly and talk about strategies and things to sort of circumnavigate or work through these different barriers that we experience. I mean, I think is something that is really great about this environment that we live in.
That's true. That's very true.
And I think it's a great thing that I do think by and large mental health providers are moving more and more closely to that more LGBT affirmative space. I don't think that they're there yet, but I do think, like, especially if we think about like, I think homosexuality is removed with the DSM, I think in the early 70s, I want to say, which like really, when you think about it, it's really recent. Not that long ago.
It's
like that's pretty recent. I mean, that's pretty recent. And to go from there to where we are now, I think is a great thing. And it's very exciting, I think, to see, what this might look like for all of us in 10, 20 years, and that sort of thing.
Well, that's heck it. You made it positive. I said we're gonna sit with it, and then you
We
weren't
just
like,
reframed it.
let
Yeah.
me reframe it and make it so
Yeah.
nice and wonderful. Yes. Taitu, and my idea how to make every year the world becomes a bit more accepting of LGBTQ people, and we have these kinds of conversations more and more. I mean, like the evolution of this channel is one, I've come out as gay,
Sure.
but also like I didn't used to make sure that I have like pay special attention to queer creators in June. Although obviously like I have queer creators on all the time because I am
Yeah.
one. No,
Whoop.
but like, you know, I didn't emphasize June. I was just like, well, I'm gonna have guests on no matter what, because it doesn't matter what month it is. I want to represent everybody.
Absolutely.
But it is important to the way we break the stigma is we highlight all these conversations in the time where they're especially visible to give them more visibility. We were talking about this recently, and I actually would love to know your thoughts on this.
Sure.
You know how like some companies, like recently on Reddit, somebody posted a list of like, here's all the companies that have rainbow logos right now that have also definitely donated to anti-LGBTQ causes.
Yeah.
And so and then there was the whole thing about Disney where one of the Alex Hirsch posted, he's like, Disney out in public, look at this rainbow and Mickey Mouse on it. Disney in private, hey, can you take out that gay scene because we won't be able to air this in Russia and China otherwise.
Right.
So my point is like, is that better than nothing?
You know, it's funny you bring this up because I was actually thinking about this earlier today, and it's such a double-edged sword because it's like, on the one hand, obviously everything that you just said, exactly right. How it's like, it's obviously extremely hypocritical to like the maximum degree, and it really boils down to profits. And at the same time, it's like, yeah, like when I was like 9, 10, sort of first like realizing like my own identity, but living in a very closeted, like not unsupportive environment, it would have been super cool to go to Target and see like a pride set. You know what I mean? Like those things probably would have had like it probably would have had a genuine impact.
Yeah.
And even as an adult, it is cool to see that. And I think we're still able to enjoy those things and understand like the capitalistic society that we live in and the way these corporations profit off of our identities. I mean, like a sort of parallel discussion, like obviously this year, Juneteenth was now made into a federal holiday. And there were some interesting Black authors on like Twitter and other scholars that were talking about how they sort of foresee in like 5-10 years that corporations will now somehow find ways to profit off of that as well. And it's like they sort of just jump from like identity to identity, finding ways to sort of like put a mask on, you know, for that brief period of time to appear supportive. But again, not actually be, you know, on a global scale. So I mean, to me, it's just like, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of, you know, sort of thing, I think.
Yeah, Juneteenth mattress sale. That I'm expecting that 100% expecting
Literally.
that. That's not far off from what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But no, I basically for like as an adult, I get the capitalistic aspect of it, and it bugs me. But it's exactly what you said. Like I wish I had seen. Hey, here's the rainbow flag. Hey.
Yeah.
You know, Disney thinks it's okay. They might not show you a lesbian scene, but they're giving you a rainbow mug, and maybe kid sees that rainbow mug in the Disney store and like asks their parents something that they wouldn't have asked otherwise. And so like as display wise as it is, I think we needed to start discussions, and also not to be forgotten the fact that it makes bigots angry, and like let's keep them angry. Let's make them angry. I
mean, it's the whole idea that there really is no ethical consumption in capitalism.
Well, that too.
You know, there really is none. And so it's like, I mean, given that, like you said, there's still, I think, positive ways we can use. Like, you know, when I was working at that counseling center, I was working in rural Mississippi. So obviously not a very like, you know, gay friendly area. I was the only gay, like openly gay staff member, but I would fill my office with all of this rainbow stuff just so when I had like a new queer client, I didn't have to, I mean, I would still probably come out at some point to them, but right off the bat, like right when they walked in the room, they'd have these visual cues that, hey, like we're on the same team. I'm on, you know, I'm like supportive, like here I am, you know? And so I do think that having some some visual indicators like that can be really beneficial for people.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but yeah. Okay, all right, that was
Yeah. I see it too. I think as streamers, we develop this really weird ability to like pick out like things in chat very quickly. So you have like eagle eye for
yeah,
like...
yeah. No, I mean, you learn not to read every comment, right?
Yeah, you really do.
Yeah, yeah. And like I think it's even like mean to laugh, but like also like I'm sorry, I can't help it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. We only exclude people whose orientation is jerk.
I love that.
I like that a lot.
That's the right note to. Oh, I have to
like
look.
that.
Look at my mods, Ken. Like for a second, this is amazing.
They're just hitting it.
Also on Twitch, we're having this conversation, and Twitch is not like imploding. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, also great.
That's pretty cool. All right, fam. This is plug yourself. Plug yourself. I'm gonna post your link 40,000 times.
Okay, great. As you can see the chat, twitch.tv/grizzly, just 5 letters, GRZLY. I'm live Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7:30 Central. In the past, I've been live Sundays at 3:30 Central. Again, I've kind of pulled back just because of my own professional work and things. Ooh. So Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7:30 Central. So like literally in 30 minutes, I guess. Those are definite times you can find me there. You can also check my website, DrGRZLY.tv, if you would like to. But like I said, I was always glad to be here, and I really appreciate you having me on. And I'm always happy to have a chat with you.
We should like game, because I know you do. I don't know if you want to carry me in DBD.
I would love that.
But you have the opportunity. I'm just letting you know you have the opportunity to carry me in DBD.
That would be awesome. I'm very here for that.
Oh my gosh. Seriously, we should do it then.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for being here, Grizzly. We're gonna be right back. There's a link a few more times. I adore you all. Let's talk soon. Okay.
Bye.
I'm waving